And we all have a superpower, and my superpower may be the willingness and ability to endure suffering. I had suffered a lot. I hadn't taken a day off in like 6.5 years because I was so hell-bent to get rich. And then I realized, almost 8.5 years in, I'd finally had enough. I had hit my breaking point from suffering, and I got so mad, and I was so unwilling to do it anymore. And I turned to my partners and I say, I'm completely miserable, I quit. I realized the reason I was living the cliche of money can't buy happiness, along the way, had become so myopically focused on this promise I had made to myself as a kid that I never stopped to ask, why do I want to get rich? The questions you ask yourself will determine the course of your life. I had been asking myself, what do I need to do to get rich? And it left me really unhappy. So I changed the question, and I started asking, what would I do and love every day, even if I were failing?
Hey everyone, welcome to the RLT podcast, where we share some real life tools, tips and tricks to help you not only discover but also reach your ultimate goals. Welcome back to the RLT podcast, everyone. My name is Mono.
I'm Leon. How are you guys doing? So stoked to see that you guys are still hanging around. So this is episode number 7, and we are absolutely delighted that you've joined us this far. Must mean that we're doing something right, Manu. What are we going to talk about tonight?
Yeah, Leon, I think we came across some really valuable content to share with the audience today. And this actually came from quite a while back, way before we even thought about starting a podcast, and something that just had a massive impact on our lives. And we have had a number of discussions surrounding this topic in the past, just yourself and I. But I thought it would be such an interesting and amazing idea to share and to just sort of get the message across and deep dive into it. So the main thing that we're going to be discussing today is the importance of why.
Oh, yes.
And I think that it's such an abstract concept if you haven't heard of this before. So originally, I think you came across this and you told me that you were reading a book by Simon Sinek, Start With Why. And It was such a profound idea, something that entirely changed the perspective of the way that I viewed life and the way that I set my goals and I set out to achieve the things that I want to achieve in life. And it's just absolutely changed the way that I think about my goal setting, about discovering my passion, about discovering my purpose. But really what it comes down to is really discovering why it is that you set out to do a certain task or to achieve a certain goal and tapping into that potential. So that's what we're going to be discussing today, Leon. And I don't know, is there anything that you would highlight from the book that you read from Simon Sinek in the sense of understanding the word why and why it's important to apply that to your life and understanding why it has such a big importance in your life?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's difficult to extrapolate everything right now, and I guess that's why we've got a whole hour to work through this. But it's like you said, and the only word I can think of is profound. It's such a profound message, and it's something that can change your life. And the thing is that a lot of people might hear the message and they don't put the message into actions, like we've talked about before. And it will stick, or anyone will resonate with the message and say that, yes, this is absolutely something that I need to apply in my life. But I really feel like this is the one message that if you can actually stick it out and try this out, this can change your life. And it doesn't take a while to change your life. You can do this right now. I mean, even if it's bedtime and you're taking this to bed while, drifting away for another day, or whether you're listening to this on the way to work, absolutely, this is a message that can change your life right now. And there's so much information about this online, so we're going to obviously try and hit some of the major points out the park today so that you kind of have an idea of what starting with why means. But I would definitely urge you, we only 2 blokes that read a couple books and did some research, but there's so much more to this topic. And this is a topic that can absolutely revolutionize your way of thinking, and by doing that you can absolutely change the way of the future, and it can maybe course redirect your life. and it can maybe take you out of a bad spot, or it can make you sit inside a job that you don't feel fulfilled and suddenly feel a complete new meaning, and find a purpose inside a difficult position where you really stuck in a rut and you don't see, the what do they call it, the light at the end of the tunnel. As soon as you start with why, and you really try and zero in on, what is the reasoning behind every minute that you spend, every thought that you put out. If you start analyzing it in such a way, your time spent becomes so much more valuable and so much more applicable. So yeah, I guess money, it's something we're going to have to take piece by piece, and kind of start letting our listeners know what we're all about.
Absolutely. I think there are so many amazing and inspirational leaders out there that we've come across. Everyone from not just Simon Sinek, but if you've ever heard from or seen a video of Jay Shetty or Tony Robbins, all of these people all take the same approach and all understand the importance of why, and they explain it in their own different ways, but it's just such a powerful concept. So first, I think, where do we start, right? We have to start with, what exactly do we mean with finding your why, or the importance of why? What is this why that we keep referring to, right? Well, it's very simply summarized as your purpose, the things that you value, or what you value and what you believe in. And saying that if I set out to do anything in my life, if I set a goal, if I want to accomplish something in my life or in my business, and Simon Sinek refers to a lot of his reasoning behind this concept of why. He relates a lot of that to business, and that businesses should focus more on their why as opposed to the how and the what. We'll talk about that in the next couple of minutes. But really, that translates such a powerful message to your own personal life as well. If you say, for instance, you want to achieve a certain goal, it's very, very simple and very easy for you to say, this is what I need to do, this is how I need to do it, right? And you can jump in, you can take action, but it's really saying that, is that enough? Is it enough to know the what and to know the how, without knowing the reason, the actual reason behind you wanting to achieve that goal? Let me actually just translate that into a real life example, right? So we all have seen amazing supermodels, or these really buff guys, ripped abs on TV or in a movie, and you see something like that and you think to yourself, damn, Mono, don't you want to look like that? I want to look like that. What can I do to start, putting myself in a position and achieve that goal, right? So instantly my mind goes to the what. Instantly, my first thing that I think of is, what can I do to achieve something like that? The second thing I think about is, so once I've answered that question, it's going to be, I need to go to the gym. I need to exercise. All right. And the second thing that I want to do is, I want to ask myself how am I going to achieve that goal? So if I know the what, I can then go to the how. I can move on and, set up daily goals or weekly goals. Say that I'm going to hit the gym twice a day, 5 times a week, and I'm going to be joining a nutrition program. I'm going to make sure that I get all of the protein that I need and all of the nutrients that I need to achieve that specific goal. So instantly our brains are wired to go to the logical explanation of how to achieve that specific goal. So this is actually touching on Simon Sinek, and I've seen probably a dozen of these videos on YouTube in the past where Simon Sinek refers to it as the golden circle. Now, if you're interested in this, guys, girls, please go and check it out. Go search in YouTube or on Google. I'm sure you'll find ample amount of content from Simon Sinek where he explains the golden circle, but we will summarize that. And that is exactly what it comes down to, is that we are genetically wired to start thinking logical first, and then to try and achieve that emotional fulfillment within, right? Yeah. The emotional fulfillment that I have when I think about going to the gym and looking like that one day is because I want to be proud of my body. I want to look the way that that person looks. Zac Efron, for instance, I'm sure that's one of the first guys that come to mind. I mean, like, damn, if you've ever watched the Baywatch movie, yeah, I mean, that guy really hit the gym. And, that was something that instantly triggered, and I was like, yes, I really just want to achieve this. How can I achieve this, right? So the point is that if we're thinking from the outside of the circle, the what, right? So the golden circle in summary is this, right? So it starts with why in the middle of the circle, right? Imagine a middle of the centerpiece of the circle is the why. Just around that is the how, and the last circle around that is the what. So we all start thinking from outside in as opposed to from the inside out. And let me tell you why this is important to try and challenge the way that we think by default. Is if I were to say I want to look like Zac Efron, the first thing that I'm going to think of is what. Okay, what do I have to do? How do I have to do it? And then later on, I'm going to achieve that goal. And what if I'm not fulfilled? Right? What if I'm not fulfilled by those results? And you see this happening over and over again all over the world. People set goals, they achieve their goals, and then they still don't know why they feel crappy. They still don't know why they don't feel fulfilled, right? So this is a very, very simple example of just extrapolating that entire concept of starting with why and the reasoning behind Simon Sinek, actually writing an entire book on it, and so many motivational speakers actually touching on this topic. And the reason that we want to bring it to you today as well is to say, let's challenge the way that we think about life and the way that we set up our goals. And it all has to start from why. So you have to take that circle, work it from the inside out, and that's what we're going to be touching on today. Leon, if you think about the reasoning behind starting with why in the example that I gave, I mean, that's just a fitness example, right? If I were to set that goal for myself, the chances of me achieving that goal even will become so much harder if I don't understand the why.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a really good example, and I think that resonates with a lot of people. But I think for me, as quite a overweight person, something that resonates even more for me was an example of my parents. When I grew up, they would, for example, not really push you into a certain direction for studies and stuff like that, but maybe kind of politely nudge you in a certain direction. And they would really focus on the what and the how, like, what do you need to do in order to become a doctor, and how would you then achieve that? But they never really focus on why would you as a person want to be a practitioner in general practitioner as a doctor or something like that. So if you start from the why, the what and the how really becomes quite easy. If you start from the what and the how, it's really, really difficult. And sometimes what happens, and I found this a few times in my life, where I would go chasing down someone else's dream, or maybe something that was, let's say, popular amongst the crowd, and something that everyone's doing. So I feel like, let's go with the flow and do the same. And I'll see, okay, that's what I need to do, and this is how I will be able to achieve it. But I never really thought about the why, like, what's that going to really fulfill me at the end of the day? How's that going to better my life? I mean, if you look at the book of Simon Sinek, and I'll be reciting a few of his quotes today, so I'm not going to quote every single time. Let's just assume that some of the wisdom preached today will come straight out of his book. But one of the questions that he, or one of the statements that he made, was from Henry Ford. I guess everyone knows who Henry Ford is. The surname kind of gives it away. I drive a Ford myself. But he summed it up best, and he basically said that if he had to ask his people what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse. And that really, 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 for me, kind of summarizes it really well. Is that if you ask someone in a specific setting and place in their life what they want, they might be so stuck in their mindset and the way that things are going that they do not see the beyond. If you asked Henry Ford the same question, he would tell you that the horse is mundane, and it's old, and it's not revolutionary, and it's not sustainable. We need to find a way to revolutionize the horse and change that into a car, which he obviously eventually did. and while the others just got stuck with, yeah, the horse is cool, it's taking me from A to B, but okay, we need to get there faster. Or maybe we need to find a way to get a horse to drink less water so that it needs less resting time. But it never really finds that purposeful meaning of transport. And all right, the whole reason we started Ford is to, help people with a commute from A to B. And let's get rid of this one wheel and reinvent the wheel and come up with a completely different conclusion on how to achieve that same thing. It Starts With Why as a book also really focuses heavily around leadership. So if you find yourself often debating in your head whether or not you would like to be a leader one day, which I really have started thinking about a lot, and I've realized that many people, and probably most people with the exception of few, would enjoy being some sort of a leader one day and inspiring other people around them to follow by example and leave some sort of legacy and so on. So I think that kind of resonates with a lot of our people that are listening here as well. Otherwise they probably wouldn't be listening. But leadership is completely the ability to rally people, not for just a single event, but for years and years and years of events. So it's the ability to kind of get people to understand what's going on at the moment, but in such a way that they completely and fully understand where it's supposed to be heading. So right now it might not seem great, and right now the micromanagement side of things, if you look at it bits and pieces, it doesn't feel like everything's going as it should. But if you are able to actually captivate their minds and explain to them where you are seeing this heading in 5 years or 10 years time, that is the why. So that's why you are here doing this job. So yes, that job entails doing some crappy admin every morning and sending emails and taking phone calls and making phone calls and doing cold calling and presenting, and as we are all doing in COVID times now, doing a hell of a lot of WebExes. And in that moment, that does not seem great. That's the what and the how, but it's not the why. The why is way further down the line. For example, we work in the cybersecurity industry, so the whole point of our exercise is to try and find a way to get people to be safer online and things like that. But from my daily tasks, that's very far removed from the actual why of the company and the why of why we are doing what we're doing. Very, very far removed. But it's these little minute steps in between that actually takes you towards that why. And as long as that why is something that you resonate with, it's something that you want to identify with, something that you feel you can be proud of and speak to other people about and inspire people about, then that's the why. That's the thing that you need to focus on. And yes, you're going to have to take all these difficult whats and hows along the way in order to get to that why.
So yeah, you actually touched on something that made me think of a talk delivered by Jay Shetty in a video or a Goalcast that I saw a while back, and he refers to it as the concept that we live in this world filled with noise, filled with expectations, and we keep trying to measure ourselves up to that. So more often than not, we find ourselves leaving school, leaving university, and sitting down and actually figuring out what it is that we want to achieve in our lives, right? Focusing on that what concept so much that we try and plan our entire lives around achieving that what and following that how, right? But what it comes down to at the end of the day, and we all want to be rich at some point, right? I don't know, like that's the reason people start businesses. It's usually the reason that we have savings accounts and we want to try and start investing and all of those things, right? And that's all good and well, but it's only going to take you so far. So if you are constantly driven by that what, it makes it very, very difficult to achieve that goal, number one. And number two, if you do achieve that goal, it doesn't necessarily mean that you'll find fulfillment at the end of the tunnel, right? So I even came across a quote from Will Smith at some point where something along the lines of he just wishes that the whole world would experience what it is like being rich so that they can see that it doesn't actually bring fulfillment, right? He wishes that everybody can experience that, but experience it very early in their lives so that they can realize that chasing after being rich as your end goal in life is not going to bring fulfillment. And that is what Jay Shetty meant by that, is the fact that we are living in this idealistic world where we think that we have to become doctors, we think that we have to become lawyers to be successful and to find fulfillment. And if we make our parents happy, if we make our grandparents happy and proud, then we'll automatically find fulfillment within that, right? So let's break that down into an example. So one of my biggest goals in life is to become financially free. And at first when I heard about financial freedom, in the sense that money is taken out of the equation, that burden is lifted off of your shoulders of not trying to just make ends meet each and every single end of the month, right? And trying to pay the bills and barely scraping by. And for me, that is one of the best goals that I've set for myself, is to one day become financially free. And I can chase that dream as much as I want to. But if I don't understand the core why behind that goal, it's going to make it that much more difficult for me to achieve. First and foremost, because what do you need to do to achieve financial freedom, and why do I actually want financial freedom? That is the question that I need to ask myself. Why do I want financial freedom? Is it because I want to sit at home, I want to sit here retired at before the age of 40 and just have all the free time in the world to do all the coolest things? Yes, absolutely. But that is not the value or the core purpose behind achieving financial freedom, for me at least. For me, it's saying that I want to achieve financial freedom and not depend on a day job and working and putting all of the hours in my day into a day job that most likely I could end up hating at some point in my life. But saying that if I had to go and achieve that goal, why? What is the main reason that I want to achieve that? And it's not because I want to sit and do nothing. It's about the freedom that it brings. It's about the time that I will have on my hands to spend with my family, to focus on the things that really matter to me in my life. And that is the main driving factor behind the entire concept. So I've set a goal for myself. I want to become financially free, and I can save as much money as I want to on a monthly or weekly or an annual basis. But if I don't understand why I'm doing that, even if I do achieve that goal, which first and foremost will be such a difficult thing to do, because I don't have the main motivator driving me through the tough months when my friends are buying cool stuff and I also want to spend money on buying those cool things, right? It's not going to take me through those difficult times. It's not going to push me to actually see the end of the goal and reach that end of the goal as well. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, even if I do achieve financial freedom, if I haven't thought about properly why it is that I wanted to achieve this in the first place, then I think it would just make it that much less fulfilling achieving that goal, because I'll be sitting there financially free, rich, call it whatever you want, to a certain extent, and not know what is missing in my life.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we need to break it up into a couple of reasons why your why is important. So I guess that sounds strange, but the reasons that I've come across, and this is not really quoting from anywhere, but this is something that I've personally realized, is once you've defined your why, it really does help you keep focused on the why. So when you, for example, know what your life's purpose is, it becomes very easy to focus on what is actually really important and most important in your life. For example, if I want to inspire people through, becoming a pastor, it's very easy once you've got that goal and why you want to do it and how that might help people in the future, to figure out what to do in order to not get distracted from that vision. And that's probably one of the most important reasons why you need to define your why. You need to be able to literally write it down. It needs to be so clear that when people ask you your why, or why are you doing something, it's something that you need to be able to articulate in such a way that it is understandable to anyone else, so that at the end of the day you can understand it yourself. You can literally write it on a piece of paper and it makes sense. Once you've got that why, it forms this almost like a bit of a truce between you and yourself, your values, your morals, and your code, to remove all other distractions so that you can reach this goal. And that is absolutely empowering. The ability to clear your mind from the white noise, the hustle and bustle of all day life, the stresses. I've got kids, so any kind of stress that comes with that, or illnesses or problems in the family, you can kind of cut through all that mess that everyone has in their life and stay focused on your why. So that's really one of the reasons why it's extremely important. The other reason is it also gives you a hell of a lot of clarity. So many of us, and myself included, and even still now, I mean, again, we're talking from experience here, but we're not necessarily talking from masters here. It's not as if we've mastered all of what we talk about, but this is what we should all be doing, is that it gives you a ton of clarity. And so many of us start off after school, for example, saying, all right, cool, but I did okay in math and I did okay in science. Let me go into some sort of science and math kind of direction. So let me do engineering, and I do okay at that, and I study it, start working at a company, do quite well for myself, try and climb the ladder towards better expectations, better money, better fruition. You meet a girl, you set up a house, you buy a dog, you get kids, you get married. That kind of, well, not necessarily in that order, but that's kind of the thing that a lot of people go for. What's missing there is clarity. In a lot of what that usual lifestyle would depict, not necessarily at any point in time did you focus on your why, or focus on any kind of clarity towards your why. Life just kind of threw you along the normal route and cause an effect of actions that you take that's got certain side effects or certain effects. I'm not saying that lifestyle is bad at all. What I'm saying is that many of the people that you encounter, myself included, at that stage where you've just bought, for example, your first car, and you've got a nice girlfriend, you're looking to get engaged or whatever, if you corner them and ask them, why are you on earth, they'll probably lost track of that completely, because they got distracted by other things along the line that are also very important, of course. I'm not saying that they're not. But it absolutely helps with clarity if you can always define your why. If you can come out of school, for example, saying that when I'm 30, if you're 18 at the time you leave school, if I'm 30, I want to earn this much money, I want to be at this point in my life, yes, that's fine. But you need to say why. Why do I want to be there, and what am I going to do, and why am I going to do it? The clarity is absolutely life-changing in deciding exactly what your why should be. The other thing that's extremely important that I just want to also quickly talk about is the feeling of gratification. So when you have a purpose in life, you will express it constantly and base most of your decisions, thoughts, feelings, and actions and everything around that overarching purpose. And a person who knows their purpose, they tend to make a greater impact through their work. And that, again, once you've done that, that will encourage a feeling of gratification. And again, a lot about this world, and you only realize it, well, I realize it now, maybe some people never realize it, but it's about giving back, and it's about finding purpose and meaning and doing something with your why that means something to the world. And many times I feel so far removed from that. I'm on my path there, so I'm finding where I am now in my life, maybe as a developmental point, of a pivotal point of discovering how to get to my why, because I can clearly define my why and why I think I've been put on earth, but I'm absolutely not at that point. And it's very important during this podcast that we also mention the fact that, again, and I mentioned this in a few of our messages, is that we are probably talking about idealistic viewpoints here, and you should 100% understand that it's never, ever, ever, ever too late. And I think a lot of people have said that, but you don't need to know your why when you're 18. And if you find yourself listening to this when you're now 40 in your car and you don't know your why yet, we're not telling you that you're screwed. We're telling you that listen to this and start thinking about this now and start defining those things now. You can define this at any point in life, and it's going to redirect your course towards what you really think is going to be important, what's going to be impacting a lot of people. At the end of the day, people want to help people. That's I would say the constant around most of the talks that we're going to have on this podcast is that people love people and people want to help people. They want to be around people, and with the exclusion of a select few, that's probably the standard. So one of the most powerful why reasons in life would be somehow finding a way of defining your skills, honing them to a point where you're probably the best in the country, maybe even the world, and then using that in order to empower other people. And again, we've touched on this in a few of the other podcasts, but I mean, this is just bringing it full circle, is that you can't really start with that process of inspiring others, changing others' life, putting back into the world, or creating something that makes life easier for people if you don't know your why and why you want to do it. If you're only going to do it for the money, it's not really going to serve you that well. I mean, if you take, for example, some of the billionaires in our world, especially the Silicon Valley ones, you can go and read their biographies, you can look at their lifestyles. These guys don't really care that much for the money. I don't know, Manu, if you agree, but if you look at many of them, high school dropouts, drive fairly reasonable cars for the amount of money they make. They might be driving a Golf GTI or whatever. Live and breathe work, but their purpose and the reason why they do what they do is almost tangibly clear. And you can absolutely see it 100% why they are doing what they're doing. It's so profound and it's so clear that it really comes through in the products that they deliver or the services that they deliver in our lives. I mean, Facebook is a good example, maybe not for everyone, but let's just take it as an example that's probably known to many and most people. But if you take someone like Mark Zuckerberg, he was never really worried about the money. I think if it was about the money, he would have probably sold the business upon many offers ago, and went and lived on a island that he bought himself. It's never been about the money. Of course, the money ensures stability and those kind of things, so it's one less thing that you need to worry about. And absolutely, we'll get to that podcast in the future about how money can at least not buy happiness, but it can actually make your brain uncluttered from a very real threat to your existence. But he's doing this business 100% at the core, thinking about how this is connecting people, enabling people to communicate, enabling people to share life experiences. And I truly believe that even though, yes, of course, there's been some stories in the news where it seems like maybe that messaging and that vision has got derailed at some point, but I think it's just a matter of how big the platform is, that some of that might have occurred. But at the end of the day, his why is extremely clear, and it's never really changed for Facebook. It's always been the same. So it's extremely, extremely important to have that level of focus, the clarity, and it's going to absolutely ensure that you feel gratified. And once you feel gratified in your life, you really start finding a way to pay it forward. It kind of becomes this complete overarching purpose in your life to pay it forward. I don't know, Manu, if you agree with what I said. I mean, I probably rambled on a few topics there. I tried to kind of condense it into something that makes sense. But yeah, it is really kind of the center to life. It's just that we sort of seem to be, finding we do it the wrong way around. We start with what we need to do and how we're going to do it, but we never really think about why do we want to do it.
You're so right in saying that, and absolutely, Leon. I think you've explained it in such a great way. Even if you have a look at just the mere point that you mentioned, that it's not too late to find your why. It's not too late to find that purpose and to find out why it is that you are doing what you're doing, and to reassess your life and to redirect or pivot your life in the in a more fulfilling direction, right? So even in Tom Bellew's one talk, he did say that he actually found himself setting 2 goals in life when he was a kid, right? He said he wanted to be rich, number 1. He wanted to be fit, number 2. He wanted to have 6-pack abs. And I think to a lot of us, that is pretty much the goals that we set in life at a very young age as well. And he found himself working towards those goals, and he ended up in a corporate job working probably for 8.5 years, to the point where just one day he just really couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't stand it. He hated his job. He hated what he was doing with his life and the amount of time he wasted, because he wasn't finding fulfillment. He wasn't finding his why. He wasn't finding his purpose. So even though he did want to become rich, even though those were the goals that he set up when he was younger, it doesn't mean that that's the end of it, and that's this is the path that you've carved for yourself. So he actually went out and said that I cannot go on like this anymore. What do I want to do with my life? What do I love doing? It's not just saying that you should love your job, right, and love what you do, right, but rather love the way that you feel when you come home from that job. Love that emotional connection. Love that fulfillment that it brings you on a day-to-day basis. And I think a lot of us feel like that because we started with a career path. We drive ourselves towards achieving all success in that specific career path. And at the end of the line, years down the line, you've actually wasted so much time on chasing an idealistic idea of what a dream is and should be, and is projected onto you by your parents or by your siblings or whoever, right? Your mentors, that you very seldom find yourself actually sitting down, if ever, and asking yourself, why am I still doing this? What is the main thing that I'm gaining? What is my purpose in this job that I'm doing? Am I finding fulfillment in this, right? And if not, you can change that. I think it's such a great topic for us to discuss this today, because I really, really, really hope that, for a lot of the listeners, this might be a very early time in your life that you might come across this specific concept. And I feel the earlier you can hear about this and apply it to your life, the more time you have to actually spend on that purpose, as opposed to wasting time on chasing an idealistic dream that might not bring you that fulfillment, right? So that's exactly what it comes down to. Is it's you're so right in saying that, Leon, is we're all human beings and we all need to have some purpose and find a purpose in what it is that we're doing and why we're doing that specifically, right? But we are effectively the ones who can redirect that and who can re-edit that entire story and change it again. So that actually brings me to another concept that I also heard from Tony Robbins, and it's the fact that a lot of people would tie their dreams or tie their goals and align it or match it up with resources as opposed to emotion, right? So the defining factor of your success, he says, is not resources. It is emotion. It's resourcefulness, right? It's saying that a lot of people might say that if only I had $1,000, or if only I had $1 million, or if only I had better education, or if only my parents did X, Y, and Z for me, right? Would I then be successful? Would I then be able to achieve more in life? Would I then be able to find my purpose? Will I then be able to accomplish my goals, right? But he's saying that it's actually such an abstract concept that we want to tie that to, this person is so much more successful than me because they had a better life growing up, because they had more money, because they had better circumstances, right? But more often than not in life, and not always, you find that the people who didn't have those resources actually end up contributing to society more than the ones who actually did have those resources. We've seen it over and over again. The people that have $1 million, the people that have $1 billion, right? These successful pop stars, these successful musicians and movie actors find themselves in rehab over and over again, right? Because the money sitting at the end of that goal was never gonna bring them fulfillment, was never gonna, even having all of those resources, having everything, the whole world at their fingertips, right? They couldn't achieve fulfillment or find the purpose sitting behind that as well. So Tony Robbins actually had a very, very good point in his talk when he mentioned this. And he said, you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I setting this goal for yourself? And I don't know about you, Liam, but have you ever set a specific goal for yourself and you failed to achieve it entirely, right? What was the very first thing that you told yourself is the reason for you not achieving that goal? Give me an example.
Oh, geez, like you're really putting me on the spot there. But let's say, for example, everyone knows about New Year's resolutions, right? So every year, everyone's got a little list. I'm no different. And, last year, I think it was last year or the year before, I decided to become more healthy and, do some exercising and things like that. So I set a goal to start riding my bicycle a little bit more and do some exercising. And yes, I did better than I probably thought I would. But obviously I didn't pull through on it. And I just kept telling myself, it's life. I'm too busy. I can't get to it. I immediately made up some gag reflex, reasoning for not getting to it. I think it's human.
Yeah, exactly. So there, the key reason that you place behind not achieving that goal is time, right? You don't have enough time. You're too busy, and we can all think about a lot of excuses or a lot of reasons why we don't achieve. And I'm no different, Leon. You've seen me do my yearly and annual planning and setting my goals, my quarterly goals, and wanting to achieve that. And I can promise you this year has been absolute trash because of COVID. But then again, I'm saying, because of the circumstances. So I'm placing the reason behind it, as you did, right? With saying that you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough time, right? But it's actually not that. And Tony Robbins challenged that entire thought process in the sense that, what if it's not the resources? What if it's just your resourcefulness and the reason that you want? So you just probably didn't want that bad enough to actually make time for it, because I can promise you've got enough time to sit and watch Game of Thrones 7 episodes in one night, right? Which will pretty much take 24 hours. But anyways, so we all have enough time on our hands to accomplish those goals. We have the resources. We're just not resourceful, or we just don't want it bad enough because the motivation sitting behind that goal is not strong enough. And that's the main reason that we're focusing on the importance of why tonight, is to say that it is absolutely crucial to not look at it from a standpoint and say, I don't have the resources. You have to maybe just draw back and say, I didn't achieve that goal. Let's find out why I didn't achieve it. Do I actually still want that goal? Do I still want to become rich? Or do I just want to live comfortably and not really stress about medical expenses or unnecessary or unplanned expenses that come up if my car breaks down, or if I need a new dishwasher? Because let's be honest, I'm never ever going to wash dishes again after owning a dishwasher, right? But it's just saying that I don't want to be rich. I don't want to own a yacht or an island, or maybe one day I do, right? But let's understand the reasoning why, the core underlying concept as to why I want financial freedom in the first place is to have more time on my hands to spend with my family, right? Is to be able to focus on not just working an office job 9 to 5, going home and hating myself because the next day I have to get up and do it again. But so it really just comes down to the point that you have to understand that underlying why in order to actually get you to that end goal.
I actually have a couple of examples that I quickly want to just bring up that also really, I think, speaks really well to the whole thought process of why. One is a very extreme example. One is something maybe you guys can resonate with. But when I was a young boy, my dad used to buy the newspaper from a guy that stood at one of the stop streets in my town. And I can't remember his name. I can definitely remember his face even till this day. It's ingrained into my brain. And this guy, he was so enthusiastic, and he would talk about every page very quickly through your window. On page 1 this, on page 2 this, and in the last couple pages this, and then my dad would buy it from him 5 Rand for the report or whatever. Now it's like $36, but anyways. Time changed. And this guy would just be the most enthusiastic guy. My dad would drive out every Sunday morning at 6 o'clock with me in the car to this one dude at the robot selling his report and other newspapers. One day my dad decided to start talking to this dude, and we noticed that actually there's like a couple of cars queuing just to buy the newspaper from this one guy. And I mean, you can buy it from the Shell garage right opposite the road where he's standing selling it on the street, but no one would. They would buy it from this one dude. And my dad actually asked him, you know what, you're so articulate and you speak so well, maybe there's something we can do for you for a job, what. Made some plans, and this guy just said, no, sir, I'm really happy at what I'm doing, and I'm inspiring people, I'm making them laugh. I start their Sunday the right way, I talk a little bit about what's going on in the news. That's good enough for me. There were other people that we later found that actually offered this guy a job at the local newspaper to do a column. And he refused the job. He said, thanks, the money is probably great and all that stuff, but I love what I'm doing. And I'm inspiring people every Sunday on the best day of the week, the day before you start what seems like another little week chapter that's coming. And I want to do this. So people have started giving him really nice clothes. At one stage, there was an article in one of the newspapers that he was selling for the local town. And people started having a fundraiser. They got this guy a car from the people, just from donations in the town. And he eventually got an RDP house. Everything just from the people that bonded with this guy about his newspapers and his enthusiasm, his unwavering enthusiasm every single Sunday. And this guy lives a really, really good life, and he's still there to this day, just selling newspapers. That's one really, really cool example that I'll never forget, that stuck with me for life, about someone that just found his why, got other offers, and he rejected them because he loved his why, but he's still doing really, really well compared to normal, let's call it, newspaper sellers on the street, just because of his attitude and the way that life paid him back for his generosity as a human being. The other example is if you take someone on the complete opposite of the spectrum, and someone that I value as an absolute icon in my life, is Mr. Elon Musk, South African boykie that's now the second richest person in the world today as of, 25th of November 2020. He's chasing Mr. Jeff Bezos. He made some strange statement in the news yesterday, and now he's $500 billion strong. He made $27 billion in a day. But anyway, so this dude is doing quite well for himself. But if you had to ask him how much he earns, he wouldn't know. If you ask him how much his company's worth, he'll tell you to speak to his accountant. He doesn't know. If you ask him to come with you to the Bahamas, he'll immediately ask you, and I read his book, and this is fact, he'll ask you exactly how much time will it take from the moment I set foot on the flight till the moment I can return, and how much time will I have available while I'm there in spare time to focus on my work, while still giving some of myself to enjoy the moment. That's how he lives his life. And a lot of people, again, this is an extreme example, but if you ask him why he's doing Tesla, why is he doing SpaceX and all these other projects that he's got, it's not about building a car and saving the planet. He wants to, he believes firmly in multi-planetary existence. And he uses both of his businesses as a complete frontier to technology, and finding out new textiles and metals and things to use inside batteries and energy, to actually develop and enhance and augment these technologies into his spacecraft that he builds in order to get to the moon. And I mean, you guys have obviously read something about this guy somewhere, even if you don't know Elon Musk quite well. And that's all. That is why. Is he wants to be the guy that enhances the capability to expand life beyond just Earth into multiplanetary existence. Obviously, step one is Mars, and then further and beyond from there. And there's probably a ton of people on this podcast, even myself slightly included, that doesn't think this is maybe the most idealistic thing to do. I mean, if we can't even fix the earth, why would we even worry about Mars? Whatever the case is that I'm trying to make here is that this dude is so passionate about his why to find a way to put people on other places in the universe that he's built several multi-billion-dollar businesses that's actually furthering one cause if you really look closely. So those are just two examples that I thought would give you a little bit of an idea, more tangible, I guess, like lab exercise, if you will, of what we mean by finding your why. It's not necessarily about money. It's not necessarily even about a legacy or something. It's just finding something that's profoundly strong, that's going to enhance people's lives, that's going to put your mind in a place where everything I do makes no sense. Some of what I do helps no one and feels meaningless, but it's all compounded to a greater cause and something that's going to come up eventually that I'm working towards.
So don't you think that it's just such a powerful idea? The fact that you can take, first and foremost, your why, your purpose, and chase that as the core principle, as your core strategy and your core approach to life. And then all of a sudden the money comes. It very seldomly, yes, money will follow. It very seldomly works the other way around, where you chase the what, you chase the how. And yes, by all means, you can get rich, you can achieve your goals by doing that, but it's not sustainable. It's not the way that you will find fulfillment or find your purpose or find yourself living a meaningful life, right? It's saying that let's start with why. Let's start with asking myself, what is my purpose? What is the one thing that makes me happy? What is the one thing that I strongly believe in, that I want to leave behind or that I want to accomplish? What makes me happy? What makes me happy in life to the point that I can do this for the rest of my life without needing or worrying about money? Money is merely the end result of you providing value to others, right? And that's what businesses are formed around. And that's what I feel our personal lives should be formed around as well, right? Is what sort of value can I provide to this world that I'm living in, to the people that I see on a day-to-day basis or that I come into contact with, or the people that I speak to, or the people that I lead. And money will automatically come as a result. Money should never ever be the end goal, because we know that money does not buy happiness, but it absolutely will follow once you chase your dream. We've seen this over and over again. You've just mentioned a very good example, Elon Musk, Richard Branson, amazing stuff that he's accomplished with his life, but just simply following his passions, following his dreams and what he wanted to do in life. And money just came. Jay Shetty, he went and he became a Buddhist monk for I think 3 years. Gave up basically declined 2 very, very good corporate job offers to go and become a Buddhist monk, and came back so fulfilled and so inspired and so in tune with his why that money is just coming. Tom Bilyeu, again, another person that I love following as well. Go and see, by the way, the clip that you heard in the beginning of this podcast, the full clip will be shared in the show notes. So go and have a look at it. It's the top 5 probably keynotes that have been summarized by Goldcast in finding your purpose, finding your why. And on that topic, I think let's wrap it up and leave you guys here today with an action step, right? It's go ahead, go and sit down, think about it and meditate and find out what is your why. What is the purpose that you want to achieve? Who do you want to be, and not what do you want to be, right? Intentionally go and sit and focus on uncovering it, right? So Simon Sinek actually mentioned, or not him, but on his podcast, they did chat a little bit about this as well, as to how can you sit down and find out what your why is. So sitting down individually and asking yourself this question might be very, very difficult, because you know yourself way too well and you're clouded by so much white noise in your everyday life that you might struggle to find clarity and understand what it is that you absolutely love. And I find myself struggling with this even to this day, is asking myself, what do I really love, to an extent that I can go and give that back to the world, right? And this is just one step of the process, right? Doing this podcast with you, Leon, and sharing our message, right? But
sure.
They challenge the notion of saying that, do you go and sit down alone or do you do this with a partner? And it actually absolutely helps. Asking someone in your life, you know me, all right, but you don't maybe know me as well as I know myself, but from your subjective point of view, what do you see in my life? What sort of trend lines do you see? What are the things that excite me? What are the things that make me happy? And maybe they can help you find that why and find that purpose, right? But what I'm saying is take money out of the equation. Money, yes, we all know we want to live amazing lives. We want to travel. We want to buy the world for our kids and for our grandkids one day. We want to leave behind a massive fortune to give them a head start in life and all that, right? But what if we had to take that out of the equation and start looking at it from what Simon Sinek referred to as the golden circle, and starting with why, and then saying, once I know my why, then asking the question, how am I going to do that? And what am I going to do to achieve that why, to achieve that purpose, to achieve that goal? Leon, any last words from your side? Any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
No, I think that's greatly summarized. I think just 2 tips. So from my side, just to add on to the tip section. So once you've defined your why, once you've written it down, it is pretty much something that you can go back to. You can look at it, you can put it somewhere, you can take a photo of it, put it on your phone, put it as your wallpaper, put it on the fridge, put it on your dashboard in the car, reflect on it, change it, adapt it, etc. But write it down. There's something very powerful that comes when you take your mind and put it to paper. The other thing, just as a last and final tip, is you can start small. We're going to touch in another podcast on the how and the what, but the how is very important. It's, if you look at this why in your life, it's going to feel like a divine goal that you're so far from it. So there will be another podcast where we talk about how do you actually split this into digestible points and maybe some stumbling blocks that you might find along the way, what some stepping stones, etc. But start by looking at the why and then put it into digestible and actionable steps that make sense towards a bigger goal. Don't just try and go for the why straight away. Start small. So just basically make it a bit shorter, put it into steps that you can actually action that doesn't feel so overwhelming, and you'll be set to go. That's pretty much it from my side, Mano. I don't think I've got much more to share on this topic. We'll obviously extrapolate on some of the concepts in further episodes.
One last quote I would like to leave you with here by Jay Shetty as well. He said, "Don't trade who you are for who you think the world needs. The world needs you to be you." All right. So don't try and do what you think the world wants you to do. Focus on your why, what you want to do, and what you have to give back. And the rest of the stuff will happen automatically. That is all from my side, Mono.
I'm Leon. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back again next episode. Be safe.
Thanks, guys. Bye. Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining this episode. We really hope that it inspires and motivates you. By the way, we're giving away a free 5-step personal budget template that will help you take control of your financial goals. So just head over to rltstudios.com, sign up for our newsletter, and we will get that right over to you. So head over to rltstudios.com and we will see you in the next episode. Until then, cheers.